It's Tuesday. Every Tuesday now until the end of June, we'll be having finance bill conversations until they pass that finance bill in whatever form or state. All right? We'll be having these finance bill conversations on Tuesdays. Today, we want to see the impact of the proposals of the finance bill on the local air transport industry. The Kenya Association of Air Operators brings together many players in this sector, and we'll hear more about it from the CEO, Engineer Liz Aluvanze, who's our guest. Good morning, Engineer.
Good morning, Latif.
Welcome to the hot seat of the situation room.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
How does it feel?
It feels good to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Good to be here early.
Yes.
We have a helipad. Did you land? Air operators.
Bring your own.
We'll demystify a bit around air operators.
Of air operators, you know.
Yes.
If we find you riding a bicycle, you're like, where? You are encroaching onto other people's territory. City will welcome you to the conversation with the day's proverb. Every week, he goes to one African country. He gets several proverbs from there, and he brings us a proverb a day. Mm-hmm. Your job is to listen and give us your interpretation of that proverb. City, where are we this week?
We're in the Republic of the Gambia.
The Gambia.
The Gambia, yes.
Yeah.
People get fed up even with honey.
People get fed up even with honey.
Okay, if I'm to interpret that, we all know honey is one of the sweetest substance and has benefits. That range from health benefits to skincare benefits. But even such a product, as human beings, we get tired of it. So I think the long story short is you can only please people to a certain point. At the end of it, they will get frustrated or to the end of their line. That is my interpretation.
Spot on.
Thank you. Thank you.
So at some point, people will get fed up with you.
Yes. Or with what you're offering. Yes. People always want new things, I feel, as human beings.
So you have to keep changing the flavor.
Yes.
Say, I am no longer bee honey. I am ant honey.
You say you even said Ken chick is now Ken beef.
See?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sawa. What's the Kenya Association of Air Operators?
This is the national registered umbrella body here in Kenya. It was actually established in 1967. We turned 57 on the 6th of May. That brings together all air operators. And you'll allow me to demystify what we mean by air operators.
Please.
So air operators are companies that offer different sorts of services to people. That is anything from your scheduled passenger and cargo services. You also have your training institutions, what we call aircraft training organizations. You also have your maintenance organizations. We call them aircraft maintenance organizations. You have operators that offer unmanned services, and we know that is an industry that is growing particularly here in Kenya. etc., etc. So it encompasses all those operators, and that is the body that represents them when it comes to government liaison, and when it comes also to liaising with the regulator and aerodrome operators, just to make their operating environment a bit better and conducive.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's people who operate within this, but they operate with the equipment.
Yes.
Not people who offer services at airports. Are they included?
Well, yes, we do. We do have ground handlers. So in that term, we do represent them, and your fuel marketers.
Okay.
So they form part of the association under what we call associate categories. But the ones who offer the services, those your airlines or charter services, those form part of the association as your principal or primary members. So that is how we've divided it. We have associate members, and then we have what we call the AOC holders, who are certified to offer a service here in Kenya.
Okay.
Yes.
How many operators are licensed in this country?
My last statistics showed that we have 83 licensed by the Kenyan Civil Aviation Authority. So just shows you how vast and diverse this industry is. So 83 licensed locally.
How many aircraft are registered in Kenya?
Over 1,700. Yes. Huh? I know, quite a staggering figure, yes. Over 1,700 aircraft are in the Kenyan registry.
So does this go across board? So we're talking about commercial, we're talking about privately owned, we're talking about all kinds of things, cargo, etc.
Exactly.
All of this falls under
Exactly.
All right. So then does it also encompass individuals as well as companies? If we're talking like carriers now, national, privately owned companies, or then individuals, me and my plane going from point A to point B?
Thank you for that question. So we have both categories. The people who own privately are what we call general aviation. So they are not licensed to offer a service. They cannot take you and your family and fly you from Wilson to, let's say, the park, because the regulator has not come and inspected and seen that they meet certain minimum standards. But they are allowed to fly privately, not for reward or service.
So they can give me a lift?
They can give you a lift, yes, but they shouldn't be able to charge you, not commercially. Yes, but that is what we call general aviation. So yes, we do represent them as well. We also represent what we call recreational flyers. So those are the ones you see in Diani, paragliding, parasailing. Also, those are air operators, and they also form part of the association. So it's quite dynamic.
Hot air balloons?
Yes, they are part of our members as well, hot air balloons. We have 8 companies registered in Kenya to offer the service. And under the association, we have 4. I'm hoping to have the rest by the end of the year. Yes.
1,700 registered, planes?
Equipment.
Or just planes, helicopters, balloons, drones, all of them. Where do they fly?
In Kenya. A lot of them fly in Kenya. A lot of them fly outside and offer export services or external services. I'll just give you a very nice breakdown of the industry here in Kenya. If I was to ask you how many aerodromes or airports are in Kenya, just a wild guess, what would you say?
What's the difference, aerodrome and airport?
Aerodrome, it's like an airstrip. It's not necessarily an airport, but you can still land and take off depending on the equipment you have. So that is what we generalize as aerodrome. Yes.
So a wild guess of how many aerodromes we have in the city. Let's start with you.
I'm thinking of the counties that don't have airstrips. And I don't see any.
So we have 47?
No, that's just for starters.
Plus.
There's some places that have more than one.
So do we double that, 94?
I would put it at 100.
100?
Yes.
Ndu?
Yeah, I'd say between 100 and 120.
Okay. I have no scientific reason for guessing. It's just... 100.
521.
What?
Yes.
521 aerodromes.
Yes, registered in Kenya. And I'll break
And by register, what do we mean?
We mean in the registry of Kenya. Every state has a register of aerodromes. So some fall within the mandate of Kenya Airports Authority. Those are the ones generally known to the public. Those are 21. Others are under the jurisdiction of Kenya Wildlife Services, Kenya Forestry Services, military. Some are privately owned, etc. So 521.
Wow.
Yes.
That's many.
Yes. So that is where they're flying to, domestically. Leave alone the services they offer externally to other countries.
The 1,700 equipment, did they include military aircraft?
No, this is civilian aircraft. Yes, yes. Military have their own jurisdiction.
And where do KWS and Kenya Forestry Service aircrafts, where do they fit in?
They fit in, I would call them
quasi.
Quasi. They're not really civilian, but they're not military.
Police?
Same for police. Because civilian means the one that is carrying passengers for reward or hire. Yes.
Well, the military choppers carry civilians
for reward.
For reward. That's true. I don't know if we're teetering into that conversation, but okay. So then, obviously, being in an association then means that there's certain things you can or cannot do, or that you're protected by, or provided for. What are those? For everybody who falls, how many members did you say there are?
We have 50 plus.
50 plus members in the association.
Yes.
Okay. So by virtue of being part of this association, what does this mean? That because you're part of the association, then XYZ happens?
Okay, fantastic. We help our members a lot. So part of it, of course, is we help to influence policy, which is, I know, part of why we're having this conversation. And for us, our policy is quite critical because I think we're the fourth most regulated industry in the world. So regulations are our bread and butter. So that is core number one. The second thing, of course, we provide forums where we enhance safety and security. So in terms of collective representation, when it comes to dealing with government, when it comes to dealing with the regulator, we offer quite a good sounding board to members. We also help to desensitize sensitive topics at times that are faced by members. And the other thing we do is, of course, we provide fora for discussions, just like any other association. We're basically the advocacy group for the industry when it comes to them dealing with the regulators and government in a nutshell. Yes.
Okay.
So those are some of the benefits the members enjoy.
Okay. Is there kind of liaison between the association, the operators, and you've mentioned government?
Yes.
So will there be, the
Yes.
essentially mediator?
Yes.
If anything then should arise.
Exactly.
All right. So of course now we are in a space whereby certain things are bubbling. Some under the surface, they will come to the fore in a very short time. And one of those biggies is the finance bill. And obviously this particular space has been affected by the murmurings. What exactly is the issue?
Okay, the issue is this finance bill is proposing to introduce VAT to certain aspects, and I know we'll break them down a bit further because they're quite complex in nature. But for the first time in a very long time, this finance bill is proposing to introduce VAT to the acquisition of aircraft, to the leasing of aircraft, purchasing, financing of aircraft. Also VAT to the services. So when you charter, when you lease, that will attract VAT. And of course, our concern is overall the impact will be felt by the consumer, by you and I, because that cost will have to be cascaded down. And the interesting thing about aviation is we're not just basing this out of nowhere. Globally, ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, sets out standards and recommended practices. And one of them is on zero rating aviation for a cause, because aviation is a facilitator. So you're meant to zero rate this service. When I bring it down regionally within the country to Kenya, this is exempt throughout. We've looked at Uganda, we've looked at Zambia, we've looked at Ethiopia, we've looked at all the countries that have a strong air transport system. All this in their law are zero rated, again for a reason, because aviation is a facilitator. So when you now propose to introduce VAT to a service that globally should be zero rated, and even within the East African community, external tariff is zero rated, of course that will bring some challenges within this industry.
Can I ask, when you say global standards, what about, say, in Europe? What about, say, in the Americas?
Zero rated.
It's all zero rated.
Yes, it's
China.
all zero rated.
What is zero rated exactly?
Zero rated means you're not meant to put any percentage on
So
the
you
VAT.
don't charge
You do not
VAT.
charge VAT.
And so you are not charging. If I am buying an aircraft, I will not be charged VAT.
No.
If I'm leasing an aircraft to operate in Kenya, I will not be charged VAT.
Exactly.
If I am hiring an aircraft to, run for hii wiki unajua niko busy sana city and need to be crossing.
Ni muhimu.
So I you do car hire, you do a helicopter hire.
Namna hiyo.
You don't get to be charged VAT.
Now let me separate those.
Okay.
Helicopter has always attracted VAT. And I've been seeing some speculation in the news. People are saying, why are helicopters being exempted? No. You have to know how to read the clauses in the finance bill. So helicopters have always attracted VAT. Now the proposal is to have even the fixed wing equipment as grouped with the helicopters to attract that VAT.
Okay.
And of course, our proposal to the national government is that they should exclude in totality both fixed wing and also helicopter.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Fixed wing.
Yes.
Ordinary planes are fixed wings.
Yes, sir.
Helicopter is not fixed wing.
It's a rotorcraft. Today I want to demystify. It does. It's a rotorcraft.
I see.
Yes,
What's
yes.
a global best practice when it comes to helicopters?
Because they also provide essential services, it's not just, of course we have the individuals who can purchase. Today, Latif, if you decide you want to land on your helipad here, you're allowed within your ways to buy your aircraft. and operate it as you will.
Nimechokeshwa
But
na
also-
traffic police hapa chini.
Exactly, Mombasa Road.
Yeah.
But helicopters also provide some essential services locally. We have companies that do your medical evacuation,
Yep.
aerial mapping,
Yep.
surveying. So that is why we're also saying they should be exempt from VAT at the acquisition stage and even when they're providing that service.
Okay.
Yes.
When this commercial aircraft or airlines selling me a ticket, are we also considering that? Are they adding VAT?
On the ticket purchase, no. Not with the current state of the finance bill as I have seen it.
So it's not proposing that,
Not on the ticket sale.
but it's on the operations
On
of
the service,
on
exactly.
everything else that you're doing.
Exactly.
There's VAT added
Exactly.
to it. And the fear now is that it'll also come to me.
It will have to come to the consumer.
So what are those taxes that we pay when you fly?
There's a lot of charges that operators pay. I'll give you an example. Your ticket, and if you've ever had time to break it down, you'll see about 40% of it is on taxes and
Well,
charges.
That's why I asked.
Yes. So a lot of it goes to the aerodrome operator, your Kenya airports, because you pay for navigation services, for
I do.
landing, yes, for parking.
Okay.
All those services are now
So the fees
Amalgamated.
are to enable the airport to function.
the airport and also the operator. You see, when you're flying above the sky, there's a service you receive from the state in terms of navigation,
Yeah.
where the airplane is being told how to navigate.
Radar, all those
Radar,
things.
exactly. So a lot of it is navigation, landing, parking fees. And those are fees that are charged daily to the operator per tail number. So if you have 10 aircraft, you park them at the airport, you pay for each and individual every day. That is
So,
how we are
okay.
charged.
Just again,
Yes.
tail number, is that where the number plate is for the aeroplane?
Exactly. Yes.
What's the downside of introducing the VAT on these services?
To put it simply,
Apart from saying, okay, everybody else in the world is not charging VAT, everybody in the region is not charging VAT. Okay, so yeah, we are charging VAT because we are running our country and our economy and we're independent. What's going to be the negative impact of it?
I'll give you 2 points. The first, of course, is we will lose our competitiveness. Kenya, as I have mentioned very briefly, has a very diverse air transport system, and it has grown despite the challenges it has grown. It's quite unique in nature. So if we introduce this VAT, why would an investor want to come here and purchase an aircraft and operate it here when the same investor can go to a neighboring country, do it with tax incentives, still operate the aircraft even into Kenya and offer service? So we must look at it that way. And I'll give you a good example. Last year, a time like this, we were quite... we put also our proposals in the finance bill because other than VAT, we used to attract another number of charges, RDL, IDF, especially on spare parts. So
planes are paying railway development levy.
yes, we were.
All right.
That's
We were.
RDL.
RDL, yes, Railway Development Levy fee, we were paying. And that, of course,
When
is
you
a
fly,
different...
you pay for railway.
Exactly, and that is a different mode of transportation. So you wonder why is one form paying for another. But we used to pay for those, even on importation of aircraft spare parts. Last year, the government listened to us and they removed those taxes. So what has happened in the last year? Kenya has registered 43 aircraft in 1 year. In 1 year, the operators have hired over 600 people. And that is the benefit we see.
600 new employees.
I'm talking new employees, Latif. Just from my members' calculation, I've not even looked at the whole industry. 600 out of the 43 new equipment, of only which 3 were helicopters, actually. The rest were balloons and fixed-wing aircraft. So you can see the ripple effect of these incentives. It means overall, the 8 times multiplier effect is felt by each and every individual. The minute you remove that, I dare say we will lose all that competitive advantage. These are business people. They will look at the numbers. If it doesn't make sense, a lot of them will deregister. And that is what we saw in 2022, when we told the government, because of these taxes, about 22 aircraft have been removed from the Kenyan registry just in 6 months. Because it was too expensive.
In 2022, instead of having new aircraft,
They were being
net,
deregistered.
we actually had fewer aircraft.
Yes.
registered in the country.
Yes.
And we had job losses
Of course.
in the sector.
Yes.
Because of the incentives last year, 43 new aircraft bought and registered in Kenya.
Yes.
That means they're operating from Kenya and within Kenya.
Yes.
600 new employees. Okay. And now you're saying if we introduce 16% VAT, the likely result of this is?
All that will possibly go away because we're just beginning to enjoy the incentives. And then here again, we're at a very unsure place where we don't know if that policy perspective will stick or if it will change. And these assets are expensive. They take about 10 to 20 years to recover. So of course, everyone has a bit of jitters. You've just brought your equipment. Now it's going to attract VAT throughout its cycle. Those are now the consequences we must deal with.
The Kenya Association of Air Operators CEO Engineer Liz Aluvanze is our guest. The association brings together various members. It's not a new one. It's been in operation since 1967. It's 57 years old this year. Brings together operators of passenger, cargo, people who own their private planes, people who are in training services, who are training our pilots, people who are offering maintenance services, people who are also doing handlers, and others are secondary members. But the main members are all these ones. So all these airlines, Kenya Airways must be a member.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
All these airlines that we book and you fly
Yes.
around here are members
Yes.
of. Even when you go to the Mara and you get into a balloon, some of those operators are your members.
Yes.
Even these emergency air rescue services, they are your members.
Exactly.
Okay. So when you have some introduction of tax pale, it is coming like this through the back door. You've told us about VAT. The proposal here is to start levying VAT. Initially it was zero rated, but now start levying VAT when you purchase, when you lease this equipment in the country. What other proposals are contained in this bill?
Okay, there are two other interesting. Of course, I've mentioned the ones for aircraft purchase, but maybe it's important I go a bit further, just so that I'm not misconstrued. This particular clause limits the weight categories because aircraft are specified by weight categories. So the introduction of VAT will attract the aircraft between 2,000 kgs and 15,000 kgs of what we call the maximum takeoff weight. What is interesting, of course, in our analysis, that is mainly all the operators are domiciled in Kenya. So your safari tours, the ones who fly the caravans, and all those equipment you see within the Wilson space and the smaller. So I just wanted to
all
clarify that
there's
a majority of them.
Okay.
Again, remember it's between 2,000 and 15,000 weight category.
Okay.
I do know for a fact, of course, the bigger aircraft, those ones are not impacted by this particular introduction of VAT. The second one, of course, is on the hiring, chartering, and leasing. That's on the services. The third one is on direction finding compasses and equipment.
What's that?
And these are the equipment that are mostly used by maintenance facilities to carry out their maintenance practices here in Kenya. So what will happen again is if you make their cost of business expensive, then the cost of maintaining aircraft domestically will be expensive.
Please say that again. What is this VAT on?
It's on what we call direction finding compasses and equipment.
Direction finding compasses and equipment.
Yes.
What are those?
Those are, in layman's term, those are what the maintenance facilities use. It's equipment they use to maintain aircraft. Some of the most, technical equipment they use to maintain aircraft.
Okay.
And Kenya is actually a maintenance hub. I forgot to mention, other than the operators, we have 88 registered maintenance companies locally. So I just want to paint the picture of how many jobs and how big of an industry this is. So 88 locally registered maintenance organizations. So they will also increase their charges, obviously, because they must take in that cost if it does come through. And that cost, of course, will be passed back to the airline because aircraft must be maintained constantly and very rigidly. That is why it's the safest means of transport.
Okay.
So when that cost is passed, again, you can just understand it will just make the cost of business very expensive.
When we're looking at this in detail, and every sector that is affected by this, as we're trying to have conversations to understand what it actually means in terms of an increase in tax or an alteration or modification of an already existing tax, then makes it easier for us to understand what's happening. I'll give an example. Last week we talked to the manufacturing folks, and it was very clear that with this eco tax, what it meant is that all packaging would be affected, and then that means that when I go and I buy a bottle of cooking oil, for example, I will have to pay 130 shillings more if all of this goes through. All right, it's already expensive. And the same can be likened to this industry. So who is using this service, just for us to be able to understand? I mean, it's obvious somebody's going to jump on a plane and go somewhere. I go to Abuja, I pay a certain amount, and these are involved here, right? I pay a certain amount. So essentially what you're telling me is that instead of the $1,200 I will pay to go to Abuja, that with this, I'm going to have to pay a little bit more to travel because of the taxes that are then being introduced on equipment for folks who are already paying some large amounts here. Is that what we are saying, if we break it down?
Okay, let me break it down. On the export of the service, that is if you're doing the service internationally, it will not attract VAT. These VAT proposals are for the domestic market.
Okay.
So it is for your companies registered in Kenya. So if it's an operator, let's say you're flying operator X that's registered in Kenya, flying you to Abuja, certainly
Okay.
your ticket price will go high,
Okay.
by about 30 to 40%. Because, this is an overall impact. It's just, you're forgetting there's the maintenance, there's the leasing,
40%?
30 to 40 approximately. We're
There's
still trying to
16 on
crunch the numbers.
acquisition.
There's 16 on
There's
acquisition,
16 on
on maintenance, 16 on the services. You understand the ripple effect,
It's
of
ridiculous.
course. Exactly.
Just make it 50% so that you understand.
Yes,
It's a nice round figure.
it's a nice round figure.
Okay.
An
But of
aircraft
course-
registered in Kenya, an operator registered in
Yes,
Kenya, offering
yes.
this service
Yes.
from Kenya to Abuja.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Kenya
If-
Airways, for
And
example.
exactly, so
Yeah.
put that in context. Though I must mention, Kenya is, remember, I've said the acquisition
biggest.
is 2 to 15,000.
Yes.
So,
So
they
let's
may
talk
not
about
be
Andega
impacted.
that's taking you to Zanzibar.
There you
And
go.
we've got Kenyan operators who are taking you to Zanzibar,
Yeah.
for example.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So those are likely to be impacted.
Definitely,
Okay.
All right,
because
well,
they're
let's-
registered here.
Okay.
And if they're registered in Tanzania and they operate, they still come to Kenya.
Yes.
And they'll take you to Zanzibar.
Yes,
You'll not.
of course, people are price sensitive. You will look at the affordable ticket,
Yeah.
and you see that's where the Kenyan operators will lose out.
Okay.
They may not be able
So the
to
Tanzania
match.
guy who is licensed to operate out of Wilson Airport and take you to Zanzibar could do that, can take you to Kilimanjaro
Yes,
cheaper
yes,
than the Kenyan guy who
Yes.
is licensed to operate
Definitely.
from Kenya to take you to Kilimanjaro.
definitely.
So that's where the
Okay.
loss of business that you
Of
speak
course,
of then comes from.
definitely.
Because it is obvious, it's no-brainer that if there's an option that is cheaper, that is the option that I'm going to take.
Exactly.
Let's look at some essential services that you mentioned. For example, airlifting, emergency health services. It is an already expensive venture to be airlifted from point A to point B, but in some cases, absolutely necessary to be done. So we're saying that even these then will be affected. So we're looking at potential. If I need to be airlifted and I cannot be because of the cost of it, then the chances are that I may use road transport, and we don't know what could happen as a result of that.
Exactly, especially given, health matters, the quick response is what saves lives. So, again, if domestically you make that service impossible for Kenyans, yet it's meant to be for all Kenyans because all lives matter, then you can just understand why our concerns are where they are now.
Were you people not paying tax before?
We pay a lot of taxes. even as we speak now, we pay a lot of taxes. And I think as an industry, we need to do a lot of work to demystify. I think a lot of people assume, unaleta ndege,
It's free.
you fly it, you don't pay any taxes. We pay quite I dare say we're some of the most highly taxed.
Can you talk about some of the taxes you pay?
They come in forms of fees, levies, and charges to the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority and Kenya Airports Authority, which of course, are the government bodies charged to oversight this industry, the civilian. So maybe if I can walk you through the journey of an operator. If
Okay.
today you decide you're bringing an aircraft and you want to fly Nairobi, Mombasa. So from the minute you identify the aircraft, whether it's with a lessor,
Not Mombasa, Malindi.
Malindi,
Yes.
from the minute you identify this equipment, before you even bring it, you have to send inspectors there with you. They have to assess and see that the equipment is fit for purpose
Before it comes to Kenya.
before it comes to Kenya. So those are fees already
Whose
that
cost?
your cost.
So, wait, we are buying a ndege, we want to bring in Nairobi, Malindi,
Let's just
and the
hear.
ndege is in South Africa. We have to
just
send inspectors to South Africa first
Eric,
Yes.
remember,
to go and inspect it.
Yes.
remember we were buying 5 aeroplanes.
Let's deal with that. Let's not tell them.
No.
Uh-huh.
Let's just listen, because we may decide to buy a helicopter instead.
Tununue shamba. Fly people to SA to inspect.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And this is the standard, maybe I should say globally. It's
Okay.
it's the nature of the
This
business.
is what happens.
This is what happens.
Okay.
It's not unique to Kenya.
Okay.
But of course, that charge is significant, so you have to cater to that charge.
Okay.
You bring it here. In fact, I should have started, before you even operate, you have to apply for what we call an air service license
Okay.
with the regulator. So this is where they assess whether you're capable or not. And in it, there are several fees, charges, levies, taxes that you pay. After that, you go to what we call the air operator certificate. And it's expensive charges, thousands of dollars, where you pay to sort of show that now you have the right personnel, you know what you're doing, your safety standards are acceptable. So it's a thorough analysis which can take even 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And in it, you can just imagine how many charges you're paying, fees and everything. In the organization that you run, that those are staff that we call critical staff that have to be licensed by the regulator. You pay for those fees. For their renewal every year, you pay for those fees. For your
Who are these?
aircraft certificate,
The pilots, the engineers.
everyone.
Okay.
Your head of maintenance, what we call the certifying staff, the people who can say this aircraft can now take off, it's good.
Okay.
You have to, they're licensed, so you have to pay for those.
Okay.
Every year you have to renew your certificates, just the same way you renew your car. So airworthiness, etc., it's a constant fees
It's an
and
annual
charges, sometimes
subscription.
even daily, because even the personnel you see depends. If you're an engineer over, let's say, 45, your medical has to be done every 6 months. It's on my cost.
Okay.
If you're an engineer less, you see. So it's everyday fees, charges, and taxes. So we pay quite a
As a
significant.
percentage, what would you say it is?
If I'm to put roughly, I'd say something close to 42, which is why your ticket. You see those fees you attract in your ticket. The airline, by the way, takes very little. And that's why their profit margins are very small. I think globally, they average at 2.6%. So the airline in itself barely makes any money. A lot of it is taxes, fees, levies, and charges. And actually, it's very bad in Africa. European, that's why you can take
It's very bad.
yes, you can take a Ryanair flight for $1.
For how much?
$1.
real?
Sometimes they put the offers for Ryanair. It's a low cost, but $1 can get
'Cause
you
can
for
fly
point.
from one
Get you
airport
there.
Yes,
to
it will
another.
still get you
And
there.
the plane works.
The plane works in perfect condition.
Yes, King Bana.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I just wanted to, debunk something here. So, you talk about the, purchasing of equipment, and that is where we see the introduction of a new tax. How often do these owners or these operators purchase new equipment? And if it's on new equipment or if it's on about to be bought equipment, then this does not affect existing equipment, does it?
It does. Allow me to answer your second question before I come to your first question.
Okay.
It will still affect the current operators because remember, they will still attract VAT on the services, on the hiring,
Yeah,
on
okay.
the leasing, on the chartering, which is the nature of the business here.
Right.
So they will still feel the impact regardless, whether they're buying new equipment or not. But of course, the most significant will be on the purchase. With every operator, the goal is always to modernize your fleet. So you invest in a piece of equipment just like a car, it serves you for a few years already with a plan to modernize because as an industry, technology also for us sets the pace. So we always want modern equipment because especially in terms of climate change agenda, etc., the newer the equipment, the better for any operator. So that is why that incentive is there also to encourage reinvestment in new modern equipment. Yes.
How often would you say these activities take place? The hiring, the chartering, the what else did you say?
Daily.
Every day.
Every day.
So there are individuals around the country or institutions, organizations who are chartering, hiring this equipment and are paying for them on a regular basis.
Yes, and not just institutions, even individuals. And I'll give you another example. If today we're going back to Malindi and you are flying on operator X equipment and for some reason they have a problem, they're allowed within the law to reach out to a similar operator as long as they comply with the regulations and what we'd call sub-charter, just for that service, and be able still to carry you. If today you have an emergency, you have to go, you have a sick relative, God forbid, you go to, let's say, an AMREF, they're allowed to what we call sub-charter. So you see, if you're bringing 16% on that service, what we're trying to say is overall, it will come down to the consumer and we will lose our competitive advantage.
Do you have an idea as to how much, in terms of all these charges and levies, how much this accrues to the government in terms of revenues every year?
I do not have the facts at hand. No, I will not be able to.
I'll tell you why I asked the question. It's because it is clear from what you say that the contribution towards the coffers of government are significant.
Yes.
But now, what is it that would increase the government coffers in terms of your industry being able to pay more? And conversely, if what we are seeing is to take effect, by how much will that be reduced?
Reduced or increased?
If the government charges you more.
Yes, yes.
And then we see all these operators leaving the country.
Thank you.
The impact of it, the negative
impact
of it.
Yes.
What cost would it be?
Yes, because the assumption by government is that they'll raise more revenue.
Yes,
and we're saying we don't think they will.
Yes, yes.
That's what we are saying.
Yes. Okay, I see what you're saying. Maybe to put it in context, air transport in Kenya, GDP contribution is approximated at 4.7%. That is according to IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, and the African Airlines Association. So quite a big contributor. And if you put that in numbers just directly, it's $1.6 billion that they get from the industry. And another induced 1.6 billion from the tourists. Because also we have to put it in context. It's not just air transport. The multiplier effect I keep on speaking about, health, agriculture, etc.
We're at 3.2 billion.
We're about 3.2 billion a year. And that is quite significant. And even it can get larger. It can get bigger.
$3.2 billion.
Yes.
So we can...
Contribution of air transport.
So air transport finances devolution.
Clean.
Basically.
Yes, clean. It does.
Okay.
So we're saying, my question was, okay, now, if let's say we wanted to increase what this industry gives the government, what would you say the government would need to do?
I would say it's just to have a conversation with the operators. And I think that is what all industries are requesting. We understand we need to develop our country. We're all paying taxes. That is not the issue. The issue is, I guess, how it's imposed without having a conversation with the people who are actually on ground and doing these services. I believe as an industry, if we sit to the policy makers and we're able to say, okay, perhaps not to this extent, given that it's a new introduction, perhaps where we can have a win-win situation and then they allow it to grow to some point and then introduce it gradually. But to bring it, you see, it's the first time they are proposing it, they're bringing it. And that's where the uncertainty comes. Yes.
Is there an encouragement of conversation? Because one of the things that you came up, you suggested now, when we talk about being able to fly a budget airline, for example, or, a carrier for really, really low rates. And it must be that operators are having conversations with governments now that you can fly from Nairobi to Dar es Salaam or from Nairobi to Kampala for $50. You should be able to do that, but then it needs the conversation. And this extra money that governments are essentially looking for will come by virtue of the fact that you've widened the operational base and that many more folks can get on a plane and travel within East Africa and be back the next day or then somewhere else or in the evening. But it cannot happen. If you're actually looking for more funds, the way to do that is to have conversations, especially in this industry, that will reduce the amount that you fly for and increase the number of folks who are getting on the plane.
Exactly.
So where are those conversations happening, or has there been room for it to happen? Because then what you then get is that come one sunny day in May, you're told, well, this will be the tax come the new year, as opposed to having conversations that will achieve the same end goal, but keep people happy.
Exactly. And I think that's the challenge we're facing here, is there seems to be a disconnect. We work as an association, we work very well and very closely with our parent ministry, which is the Ministry of Transport. So we're able to articulate, they understand the situation and the issues, because they also have a team of experts that really understand air transport. The disconnect seems to be when we are trying to have those conversations with the National Treasury, who are the proposers of some of these bills. It's now to just ask them and tell them we need to sit down and have a conversation where it's a win-win situation. We understand there's increased pressure to raise revenues. We're all Kenyans. We're not going anywhere. This is our country. We want to develop it. As an industry, we need better infrastructure. We want to fund to develop infrastructure. And actually, globally, I forgot to mention, the proceeds of air transport are meant to be put back to the industry. That is how developed countries work. That is why they're able to develop their infrastructure and etc. It's not meant to...
So they ring fence.
They ring fence.
Some of these
Yes.
levies are actually ring fence. They
they're
shall
meant
be
to-
reinvested in.
the industry.
And you're saying that's not the case in Kenya.
I don't know. I can't speak very,
But you're not aware of any ring fencing.
no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yes.
So the conversations that happen between the association and the National Treasury, how far do they go? Are you accompanied by people from your parent ministry, the Ministry of Roads and Transport, who go there and see to their counterparts at the Treasury and say, so this is what the transport sector in Kenya needs, right? Where they can say, these are the guys from road, these are the guys from rail, these are the guys from air, and these are the things that we say, so you can support these guys, this and the other. Have those kind of round table or square table or rectangular table conversations happened?
At least in my instance, yes. We
Okay.
have had, because when, of course, we table the memorandum, we have to inform. So we've been able at least to sit down with the parent ministry and representatives from Treasury to speak about our concerns. But you see, that necessarily doesn't translate to the final product or action. And I think that is where we're saying we need to figure out this disconnect.
Liz, what kind of feedback do you get when you sit with these economists across the table and you tell them, so if we do this, this and the other, this is the support we need, this is what we can do? What do they tell you? Do they just give you blank stares or do they ask questions? What?
Most economists will ask a lot of questions and then tell you will receive feedback.
And the feedback is what is in the finance bill.
Even silence is an answer.
Have you presented to the Finance Committee of the National Assembly?
We are scheduled to go there tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Yes.
So tomorrow morning, you'll be there before that Finance Committee. You'll
Yes.
be presenting your proposal,
Memorandum.
your memorandum,
Exactly.
and response to this.
Exactly.
Hoping that they listen and they do something about it.
Yes.
If they don't, we should expect that we will be paying more to fly. We should expect impact on jobs and job availability of jobs in this sector.
Yes.
We should expect that we may have fewer operators
Yes.
running out in this country.
Yes.
Hey.
And
okay.
perhaps losing our status as an aviation hub, Again, I spoke about the maintenance, the training. There's a whole ecosystem that exists. And that is all at risk. We will lose our competitiveness.
Thank you very much, Engineer, for joining us.
Thank you.
Engineer Liz Aluvanze is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Air Operators, finance bill and the impact on the air transport sector in the country. Give it here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.